Welcome to the African History Network show. It is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, and we are live right here on 910 AM, the Superstation of Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep, and we are going to be joined in just a minute here by Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, and his new book that just came out a few days ago, The First Americans Were Africans, Expanded and Revised, which is a fantastic book that gives more evidence of the African presence in the Americas, dating back tens of thousands of years ago, including the land that we call the United States of America. You know, on yesterday's show, we talked about Indigenous Peoples Day. And we know that Joe Biden did a proclamation on October 8th, recognizing October 11th, 2021 as Indigenous Peoples Day. So yesterday we dealt with a lot of history, and we talked some about the African presence in the Americas, dating back over 56,000 years ago, and in the land that we call the United States of America, dating back at least 51,700 years ago. These are the Khoisan, who have the oldest DNA on the planet. They go all around the world. They're the ancestors to the Ainu and the Twa, and they were here in this land, in the territory we call South Carolina and Georgia, as the discovery in 2004 by Dr. Albert Goodyear, who's an archaeologist at the University of South Carolina, as that discovery showed. Okay, so on yesterday's show, I said I'll reach out to Dr. David Imhotep today and see if we could get him on the show, on today's show, so we can talk about this some more. And I was able to do that. Now, we know that October 12th is the anniversary. We don't celebrate it, but it's the anniversary of Christopher Columbus landing in the Bahamas, October 12, 1492. Okay. That's the anniversary of Christopher Columbus landing in the Bahamas. Now, we know yesterday was Indigenous Peoples Day, and today is the anniversary of Columbus landing in the Bahamas, which, and Columbus is central to the spreading of slavery, racism, capitalism, and the exploitation of indigenous people. Okay, so even though we may not celebrate Christopher Columbus or Columbus Day, things like this, it's important to study Columbus. Columbus is crucial to understanding the transatlantic slave trade, etc. Shakita, were you able to get Dr. David Imhotep on the line? Because he just called me. She's about to call you. This is my phone. She's about to call you. Okay, just hang up. All right. Okay, so on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and throughout the world, because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself are published on this subject. After colossal Negroid stone heads were first excavated in Mexico in the 1860s, several Latin American scholars began to speculate that Africans had sailed to the New World in ancient times. Several Latin American scholars began to speculate that Africans had sailed to the New World in ancient times. Now, unlike his predecessors, he does not claim that Africans simply sailed to the Americas before Columbus and influenced the Native Americans who resided in the New World. Dr. David Imhotep painstakingly states, and we know his first book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, is backed up by 713 footnotes and 7 peer-reviewed articles. This book here, my copy is autographed by Dr. David Imhotep, because I'm not new to this at all. All right, so just so people understand. Unlike his predecessors, Dr. David Imhotep does not claim that Africans simply sailed to the Americas before Columbus and influenced the Native Americans who resided in the New World. Dr. David Imhotep states instead that the Native Americans themselves were Black Africans who first reached the New World at least 130,000 years ago. Okay, let me repeat. Now, we've talked about 130,000 years here on this show before. We've talked about the article from 2010 from the New York Times that talks about how on the Greek island of Crete, archaeologists did excavations for over the course of 2 summers, and they found stone tools that date back at least 130,000 years ago. Okay. Now, citing skulls and skeletons, footprints in lava, campsites, genetic M1 for genetic markers in dealing with DNA, linguistics, paintings, carvings, architecture, and Egyptian writing, artifacts, and structures. Now, Dr. David Imhotep received his PhD, received the first PhD, concentrating in ancient African history from Union University in Cincinnati, Ohio. He has served as president of the Egyptology Society at the Miami Museum of Science and Planetarium, and was the founder of ASCAC, Association for the Study of African Association for the Study of Classical African Civilization in Miami in 1991, the Miami chapter of ASCAC. He has been featured in several magazines, such as the Journal of Black Studies, an article entitled The African Aqualithic Period. This book is the first in a series of books designed to cause any books about ancient African history to be rewritten. We want to welcome back to the African History Network show one of my friends, Dr. David Imhotep. Hotep, brother, how you doing tonight? All right, take him off mute.
Well,
all right, brother, how you doing tonight, Dr. David Imhotep?
I'm doing very well.
All right.
How are y'all?
All right, excellent, man. Well, look, it's good to talk to you earlier today, and we were talking about Indigenous Peoples Day. We were talking about Christopher Columbus, and one of the things that I was saying was that October 8th, President Joe Biden did a proclamation issued October 8th, and it declared October 11th as Indigenous Peoples Day. And some African Americans didn't realize that Indigenous Peoples Day also includes us. Okay, so that's one of the things we want to talk about, and then I also want to talk about your new book as well. And then, as we discussed earlier today, October 12th is the anniversary of Columbus landing in the Bahamas. Also October 12th, 1492. So, talk about. We know your new book is out. Your long-awaited new book. Talk about the premise of your book once again, because it's going to shock people, because so many of our people think that we first came here August 20th, 1619 in Virginia.
Yes, I have. I don't know if people know what peer-reviewed evidence is, but peer-reviewed evidence is if a amount of scholars, more than 12, all get together and they agree on a certain piece of evidence, then it's peer-reviewed, and no one can overturn that. And I have the updated version of what I've heard about when the Americans were in Africa and in the Americas. And what I have for peer-reviewed evidence is they were here in the Americas between 250,000 and 325,000 years ago.
Okay, 250,000 and hold on, say it again. 250,000 to what?
Okay, they were here between 250,000 and 325,000 years ago in the Americas.
Okay, so which Africans were these, and where in the Americas were they?
Okay, well, what Africans they were from Central Africa, Southern Africa.
You talking about the Khoisan? You talking about the Khoisan?
Yeah, it could probably be the Khoisan. Yeah.
Okay.
But no matter what name you put on it, they were African.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And they were short Africans. Now,
right.
Check that out. They were short Africans, between 3.5 to 4.5 feet tall.
Okay, so those are like the Khoisan or the
Is
Twa.
that amazing or not?
Yeah. So those are like the Khoisan, the short-statured Africans who have the oldest DNA on the planet, and we know they're in southern Africa. Okay, the Khoisan. Okay, so 250,000 to 325,000 years ago. So where in Central America were they? They're in Mexico. Where, as best as you can, narrow down where they were.
Right there in Central America, in the area of there's a few. Now I'm trying to think of. Yeah, it was in Central America. It was definitely in Central America is where they came. Because when you come over, when you jump off of Alkebulan, which is the correct name for Africa, when you come off of Alkebulan, and you can put a boat in the water, and the water waves of currents will take you straight into the Caribbean. Right. And this is where the first Africans came into the Americas through that mode. Now there was another way that they came, and that was from China across the Bering Straits into Canada, and then into North America. Okay. So those are two different ways that they came in.
Okay, we're coming up here on a commercial break. In your first book, The First Americans with Documented Evidence, and we'll connect this to your new book, you talk about Africans began sailing to the Americas at least 60,000 years ago. Okay. Now, do you have to push that date back, or is that still accurate?
That's accurate, and it's peer reviewed, like I said. Between 250 and 225,000 years ago, they were in the Americas, and that's peer reviewed.
Okay. When we come back from the break, we want to deal with specifically in the land we call the United States of America, and we want to talk about the Khoisan in the territory we call South Carolina and Georgia, and the discovery from Dr. Albert Goodyear that puts these Africans there at least 51,700 years ago. And we also want to talk about your new book, The First Americans Were Africans Expanded and Revised, and talk about some of the new research there as well. Okay, stand by, Dr. David Imhotep. Okay, you listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021, and we are live. We're speaking with Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, and his new book, The First Americans Were Africans, Expanded and Revised, that is now available right now at Amazon.com. So Dr. David Imhotep, we're going to get back to the topic at hand, what we talked about right before the break. But when did your new book come out? The First Americans Were Africans, Expanded and Revised. When did it come out?
When did it come out?
Yes. When did the new book come out?
Is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Okay, came out between 2 and 3 weeks ago.
Okay, between 2 and 3 weeks ago. Okay.
It came out.
Okay, excellent. So people can purchase it at Amazon.com. And where else can they get the book? Where do you want people to get the book from?
Amazon is the major bookseller, and I think that's it.
Okay, Amazon.com.
It could probably, it could be others, but I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Amazon.
Okay, Amazon.com. The First Americans Were Africans, Expanded and Revised.
Yes.
Okay. Let's go back to right before.
Go ahead. Black and white edition.
Yeah, there's a color edition and the black and white edition.
There's a black and white edition.
Go ahead.
Right. Correct.
Okay. Explain the difference between the two editions.
That's what I'm saying. Well, the only thing that's different is
that thoroughly documented an African presence here in the land we call the United States of America, going back at least 51,700 years ago. They found artifacts, architecture, campsites, carvings, Egyptian writings, footprints in lava, genetic M174D haploid groups dealing with DNA and genetics, linguistics, painting, skulls, skeletons, structures, and tools. Now, this is, and you can contextualize this and flesh this out and add in new research as well. This is before Native Americans, the people who we call Native Americans, existed. Is that correct?
Yes, yes it is.
Okay, so these were the Khoisan. So talk about your new research from your new book, and here in the land we call the United States of America. How far back is there an African presence, and what did they leave behind so that we know these were African people? What evidence did they leave behind?
The evidence we left behind was black faces.
The evidence we left behind.
Number one.
Okay. So you're talking about the Olmecs?
I'm sorry. Yes.
You talking about the Olmecs?
The Olmecs. Yeah.
Okay. So
yes,
we're talking about the Olmecs in Mexico. Okay. So if we look at specific, if we to address with specificity, if we look at the contiguous United States of America, this landmass, the contiguous United States of America, in Allendale County, South Carolina, the discovery from 2004 showed 13 different types of evidence of an African presence there. Okay. Talk about more evidence of African people here in this land we call the United States of America, because we already know Christopher Columbus never came to this land. The closest he came here is Cuba, which is 90 miles away. We know John Cabot, the British explorer, goes into Canada in 1497 on behalf of the British. Okay. Giovanni Caboto. But when we deal with African people, we were here before anybody else. So talk about that African presence here, specifically in the land we call the United States of America, but you can talk about Mexico, et cetera, also.
Sure. We've all have been said the name of the first Africans as being, the first black folks anywhere is Africans. But that is not the correct name for these people. It's people who are called the people from Al-Kebilan. They were Al-Kebilan people, and not Africans. That's the name that it is the most ancient origin name.
Okay, Al-Kebilan.
The black folks on this planet.
Yeah, that's Al-Kebilan. That's an Arabic derivation. Al-Kebilan. Al is an Arabic prefix like algebra, alchemy, alcohol, al-Andalus. That's introduced into Europe by the Moors. Those things: algebra, alcohol, alchemy. Alchemy is what they called chemistry of Kemet. Okay, so when we talk about, if we look at
very well put. Very well put.
Oh, thanks. And just so people are not confused, just so people are not confused, Africa was not named after Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus. He took his surname after he conquered that territory. This deals with the Punic Wars. Africanus means belonging to Africa or of Africa. It's Latin. You can look at Cassell's Latin English Dictionary, 2002 edition, page 11 in the entry for a fear. Africanus. Africa means land of the Afri, in reference to the Afri, who were black African people in Algeria and Tunisia. Tunisia used to be called Carthage. Afri is dealing with the area that Publius Cornelius Scipio Africanus conquered. Okay, so people think Africa is named after him. No, he took his surname after the area he was conquering. Also, people can read pages 14 and 15 of African People in World History by Dr. John Henrik Clark. He talks about the Afri as well. Now, getting back to your book here, one of the things that I found interesting in book 1, and you can connect this to book 2 as well. You talk about how all black Indians were not ex-slaves or descendants of slaves. And you talk about the back cover of your picture. And I think on the back cover of your picture, you have the Algonquin. It deals with the, I think the back of your first book, I think it deals with the Algonquin. So talk about that, because oftentimes when we talk about black Indians, we think they are all ex-slaves. Okay. Connect that to the Algonquin and that once again, that African presence that was here that's been hidden.
Okay. So the picture that we're talking about on the back of my book is a picture of Black Africans. And they're in the presence of a pyramid in Central America. And they are dressed as other people they have the layer of people below them in the picture that only have what looks like strings around their waist to hide their genitals, and then they have the cornrows, and then there's another one that's in the same picture where people are standing up looking at each other, and they're wearing the different outfits like leopard skins and different things of that nature, and they have hats on. So, and this is a picture of what was going on inside one of the pyramids in Central America. And let me tell everyone that pyramids have been made only by Africans. They were not made by white folks. They were not made by Chinese or Japanese or any other people other than Africans. They're the only ones who made the pyramids. Now, this is another thing to go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
If you go out into the crystal waters of the Caribbean, you can look down into the water and you can see, without any glasses or anything else, and you can see pyramids about in that water. They're so clear. Now, if you want to go further for pyramids, there are pyramids in all waters of all the planet, in the Pacific and the Atlantic, all over there. Plus, this will really blow you away. There are pyramids, and you can go yourself. You can put you can go to Google and put pyramids on the moon or pyramids on Mars, and you will see pyramids on the moon and on Mars. And who was that? It had to be Africans as well. So Africans have not only been all over the planet, but all over the moon and all over Mars. I'm done.
Right. And I know on the surface of Mars, there are pyramid-like structures, and there's also an imprint of like an African face on the surface of Mars. Now, when you get into the oral traditions of African people, the Amazulu or the Zulu of South Africa, they say they come from Mars. When you look at their oral traditions, okay. And the Dogon talk about the Sirius A and Sirius B star system, and they say they're from the star Sirius as well, the Dogon of Mali and Burkina Faso, who were originally in the Nile Valley region of Africa before they go into Mali and Burkina Faso. When we look at Christopher Columbus, and more people are celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day and honoring Indigenous people and moving away from Columbus Day, etc. But we still have to center Columbus correctly in history, because he's crucial to the spread of slavery, racism, capitalism, the exploitation of Indigenous people. And recently, the past few months, Cuba, Haiti, and Jamaica have all been in the news. And these were all island nations that Columbus conquered on behalf of Spain in 1492 and 1494. So they still have not recovered from what happened a little more than 500 years ago. So he's crucial to understanding his history. But Leo Weiner, renowned American historian and linguist, Leo Weiner, said one of the strongest pieces of evidence to support the fact that Black people sailed to America before Christopher Columbus was a journal entry from Christopher Columbus himself. And I think you've talked about this as well before. He explains that Columbus noted that in his journal that the Native Americans confirmed, quote, black-skinned people have come from the southeast in boats trading in gold-tipped spears, end quote. Talk about that for a minute.
There you go. Yes, well, gold is a hot commodity now, as as it was in the very beginning, because when people saw these rocks and these stones that were gold, that's a different color and a different type of material. So it was a number one commodity, and they would trade in gold as we trade with dollar bills and coins. So yes, it's a very, very, very interesting subject to go into on that end.
Okay, and so Columbus is seeing. He's talking to the Native Americans are confirming that Africans sailed there, but also came from the southeastern boats. But also in your first book, you talk about how 70%, and you and I have talked about this in previous interviews, at least 70% of the people Columbus encountered on his 4 voyages were African people. Okay, you talk about this as well. Yes. So explain that. The reason why I say that is because when we study Columbus, and those watching on Facebook and YouTube, I'm going to pull up a slide here to show where Columbus went on his 4 voyages. Once again, he never came to the land we call the United States of America. He goes into the Bahamas. He called the Bahamas San Salvador. He landed in the Bahamas today, October 12th, 1492. He goes into Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Honduras, Panama. He goes into Central America, goes into South America a little bit. But normally when we talk, for instance, when we talk about the island of Hispaniola, or what he called La Isla España, or something like that. That's what he called it. I have to look at the exact spelling of it. He called it La Isla Española. That's what they called it. And then it became anglicized as Hispaniola. Okay, it means the Spanish island. And we know the 1/3 of it to the west of that island of Hispaniola, it was Haiti, which is an Arawak word. Today we call it Haiti. But traditionally, when we look at these areas, we talk about the Taino, we talk about the Arawaks, we talk about the Saboni, etc. But we don't talk about Africans that were there prior to 1501, when the Spanish start taking Africans into these islands that they're conquering, 1501, 1502. Talk about the Africans that were there prior to that.
Okay, the Africans that come in there, that were there prior to that, had a different type of dress than the ones that came to them, because it's just like anything else. You know, if you're in a neighborhood, say when you're a child, there's a form of dress that people naturally use, and then if you go maybe 30 or 40 or 50 years later, the styles have differed. So these are people who don't stand still. They correct their language. They connect their clothes with other clothes from other peoples, and sometimes those types of clothes become more desirable than the clothes that they had, so they change those. And as far as the foods too, the foods are different in different places, so they learn about different foods. So it's an amazing way that two peoples come together, but they still look the same.
Okay, now we were talking about the Algonquin a minute ago, and you talk about how Egyptian artifacts found across North America, from the Algonquin writings on the East Coast to the artifacts and Egyptian place names in the Grand Canyon, are all signs of an early arrival in the Americas by Africans. So talk about that a little bit and explain who the Algonquin were, because the Algonquin, that's not a term that we hear often. Who were the Algonquin?
My best answers to that is they were Africans, or Alkebulan peoples, and they didn't look any different except for maybe their hairstyle. Their clothes were the same. Their rituals were mostly the same. And the structures that they built, however, were a little different. Some had the Mexican-looking homes. Some had the wooden homes, and there was a third. I can't remember what it was, but they had different types of homes depending on where they came from and where they began, and when they get to wherever they are, they see homes that are like in the cowboy days. The cowboys come and they get into the Indian villages. They see teepees. They've never seen teepees. So different things are what have happened over the years.
Okay. So, and I know in your first book, you talk about the Algonquins some, and how these were Africans as well. And one of the things that takes place, and you can comment on this, one of the things that takes place is that when European invaders / explorers come to this land, the African groups that are already here, many of them get reclassified as Native Americans. So then that way, if you don't know what happened before Europeans got here, you won't understand what happened to those groups of African people that were here. I don't know if you're familiar with Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay, but he's one of the baddest scholars on the history of the Moors, and Professor Kabahai Wata Kamene told me that personally. But Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay used to teach classes on the history of the Moors at Temple University, and I've interviewed him before. And he has an excellent essay in the book Golden Age of the Moor, edited by Dr. Ivan Van Sertima. But Dr. Jose Pimenta Bay says that if you don't know the names that your people have had throughout history, you won't know how to find yourself in history. Okay, so you're looking for Negro but don't know Moor deals with you. You're looking for colored but don't know Algonquin is referring to African people also. So you've talked about before how Asians come to this land around 3000 BC, and they intermix with the Africans who are already here. Talk about that, and who are the offspring of that intermixing of Africans and Asians?
That would be the red man. Isn't that something? That's the red man. They look a little different because they came across other people that looked different than they did, and you put them together, and you have the American Indians. They are the ones who are there when the Africans get there, because of the ones who come across the Bering Straits from China into Alaska, into Canada, and then down into the Americas, North America and Central America, and then eventually in South America. So there's a lot of mixture going on there. But then you have the Africans who the people from Al-Kabilan. They come over and they're dark skinned. So when they melt, it changes their color a little bit.
Okay. In the summary of your book, in the summary that's at Amazon.com of your book, there's a passage in the summary that says Dr. David Imhotep states that Native Americans themselves were Black Africans who first reached the New World at least 130,000 years ago. Reached the New World at least 130,000 years ago. Where did they go? Where did these Africans go? Where did they go into 130,000 years ago? And what type of archaeological evidence are we citing of this African presence 130,000 years ago, which blows the Clovis culture out the water in New Mexico, which dates back about 13,000, 14,000 years ago, the Clovis culture? Where did they go? Where did they land 130,000 years ago?
Okay, as I said before, it came from Al-Kabilan, Africa, into the Atlantic Ocean, and then when they do that, the winds blow them into central, or into the area of between Florida and Central America.
Okay,
that's the Caribbean.
Okay,
that's where they came into.
Okay, between Florida and Central America, so they're somewhere in the Caribbean. Into the Caribbean. Okay, all right, and then so they're sailing. Go ahead, finish your thought.
But yeah, if you go into the Caribbean and you continue to venture to the west, then you'll hit Central America. That's what I was going to say.
Okay. All right.
Or Mexico, as it were,
right.
if you will.
And I know 130,000 years is I know it's a significant figure for two reasons, two archaeological discoveries. One, the one on the Greek island of Crete, in 2010, the article that the New York Times has that you cited in your interview with WKRP in Cincinnati Channel 5 back in 2011 when your first book first came out. So that's significant, number one. Number two, the discovery that came out a few years ago about mastodon skeletons found in California that date back 130,000 years. And it said that the paleontologists are saying that the skeletons were broken by humans. So they're saying if this is accurate, this puts humans in California 130,000 years ago. Okay. And when that article came out, when that discovery came out, I sent you a copy. I sent you I emailed you the article. Because I said, okay, this deals with this 130,000 years that, because, we talk about how there's at least 130,000 years of our history stolen. So, okay, now this one here, I have the slide up. This deals with the study from the article from New York Times on Crete, new evidence of very ancient mariners. Now everybody can read this article. This is from the New York Times. February 15th, 2010. Okay, this is not the fiction section of the New York Times. Okay, this is from the science section of the New York Times.
Correct.
Okay, just so people not familiar with this. So we have that one, and then also we have the study from I'm looking at the article here from NBC News. Mastodon bone findings could upend our understanding of human history. Paleontologists have dug up a 130,000-year-old mastodon skeleton that looks like it was smashed apart by humans, but they found it in America where people were not supposed to have arrived for another 100,000 years. Once again, now this is the science section of NBC News. This is not the fiction section. This is not the opinion page. Okay. Talk about this. Yes. Africans 130,000 years ago in the Americas, but specifically, if you have information here on the land we call the United States of America, talk about that also.
I'm not remembering that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm 71 years old. A lot of my things, I've written down, but I just can't remember.
I understand. But
I don't remember that part.
Okay.
It's in the book.
Right. Okay. No problem. All right. We have a few minutes here left in the interview, and let people know you have another book coming out also about you and Muhammad Ali. You want to talk about that one?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Go ahead.
It's called Ali and Me, and my uncle was Muhammad Ali's business manager, and I met him when I was going on a trip, and he introduced Ali to me, and Ali, we got to talking, and we talked about sports, and he found out that I was an athlete, and we talked about history, and he saw that I was a historian, and he kind of liked that, and he pulled me in, and I was his nutritionist for his last 7 fights. And
his nutritionist. Slow down, because your voice was a little muffled. I know the story, but for people who haven't heard it, you were Muhammad Ali's nutritionist for his last 7 fights because you used to be a nutritionist.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
That's correct.
Continue.
So he as he aged, he needed more and more help with the nutrition. That's why he hired me, and I was able to get his weight down to his weight class, because if you come in overweight, then no matter who you are, you will not fight.
Right.
So I had to put him on a diet that was not pork and beans and steak and liver and different things like that. The only meat that we allowed him to or we wanted him to eat, which he did, and that was fish. Because fish there's no fat in fish. It's pure protein. So he was on fish, and he was on. I had him eating a lot of foods that you didn't have to cook. You know, there's some foods that are tasted just as good, even better cooked than they do when you take them from the fields. Right. So it was a wonderful time with this guy. There was no one who didn't like the guy. Even Joe Frazier, after he beat Joe Frazier, they became friends again. So there was no one on this planet, I mean, that we knew of that did not like and respect this man. He was a special guy.
Well, he fought Joe Frazier 3 times. He fought Ken Norton 3 times. Right now, up on the screen, we have a picture of you and Muhammad Ali that you sent to me before. Dr. David Imhotep, you have a PhD in nutrition, right? Was it a PhD in nutrition?
Correct.
Okay, PhD, because he has 2 PhDs, right? And Muhammad Ali gained weight quickly. That's the other thing. So you had to keep a close. He had to stick to a strict regimen when training, especially as he got older, because he gained weight quickly. And you know, he was a phenomenal fighter. We know he fought Ken Norton 3 times. He had wars with Joe Frazier. He fought, if I remember correctly, he fought Floyd Patterson twice also, right? I think he fought Floyd Patterson twice. Okay. Yeah. Now, did you see did you see the 4-part documentary series Muhammad Ali by Ken Burns? Did you see that on PBS?
No, I did not.
Oh, I got to send you the link. It's on Public Broadcasting System's website. You can stream it. It aired on TV on PBS, but they have all 4 installments. It's 8 hours of documentaries of a documentary of Muhammad Ali. It just came out last month. They went through about 15,000 photographs.
Oh my God.
And they got stuff. They have footage. They have photographs most people have never seen before, man. I'm going to send you that when we get off the air. It's going to knock you out. Okay. All right. Let me see here.
Bless your heart. You're knocking me out now.
Oh, well, we got to take care of you, man. You and I go way back.
Thank you so much.
Let me ask you, let's see. You got a few more minutes? You got a few more minutes?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. I'm going to call you right back from my Skype line on the phone, and then we'll continue for a few more minutes, and we'll let you get a few more questions in. Okay, so she's gonna disconnect the call on that end. I'll call you right back, Dr. David Imhotep. Hopefully you learned a lot today, and be sure to register for the online history classes that I teach on Saturdays and Sundays. Saturdays, normally 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I teach ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Visit our website, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, TheAfricanHistoryNetwork.com, to register for the online classes. And right on the homepage, scroll down, you see information about our radio show. We're on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We broadcast on our social media platforms. My class is Ancient Kemet, one of the original names for Egypt, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place, okay? So you can join us Saturday, October 7th and 14th. And 21st and 28th, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have a couple of videos here you can watch as well. To the previews. The class is on sale $80, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. Actually, we dropped the price to $60. So on sale $60, regularly $130. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch them anytime. Okay. So even after the class is over with, you still have access. So a year from now, 2 years from now, you can go back and watch the entire course. Sundays, I teach Black resistance movements from the Haitian Revolution, U.S. Civil War, Civil Rights Movement, and Black Power Movement, 1800 to 1968. So we're going to have another session of this class coming up October 14th. Okay. Sunday, October 15th. We'll have another session of this class coming up Sunday, October 15th. So as soon as you register, you can go watch the previous classes. This class is on sale $40. As soon as you register, you can go back and watch the previous classes, and you'll be ready to join us Sunday, October 15th. Also, if you'd like to stop it for information, you can support the African History Network, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, $, the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills. All right, we have to get out of here. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace. Okay, we've got them back for a few more minutes here. Okay, so, you know, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on is because listening to, on social media, comments on social media, and then also listen to some radio shows. I'm getting some feedback or something. I don't know what this is. Listening to some radio shows on Monday, which is Indigenous Peoples Day. Mm-hmm. A lot, so many of our people don't understand our history, and they think that our history started in slavery. Mm-hmm. So when you have an Indigenous Peoples Day, a lot of people don't know that includes us also. Now, that does not mean the transatlantic slave trade did not happen. Yes, it did. It just happened thousands of years after African people originally came to this land. Okay. Just talk about that. Talk about that for a minute. And then, do you get pushback from African Americans when you talk about the African presence here thousands of years ago and before slavery and things like that? Do you get pushback from African Americans?
I wouldn't say pushback. I would say they were so used to what they were taught in school. When I talk to them and I try to show them that we were here a lot longer. This is what my teacher told me this. So, that's about the only thing. Most of them are cool with it, and they said, "Oh, okay, it's good. I'm glad I learned something new."
Okay. So when you tell them that, now I see, I've done lectures like here in the Detroit area, man. And it's like people like in the 60s, 70s in the audience, like speaking at churches. And when I tell them Columbus never came to this land we call the United States of America, and I showed them where Columbus went on his 4 voyages, man. People look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, no, I said, you got to go research this. You can go to history.com. Look, a lot of these sources, history.com, Britannica, National Geographic, they know the truth. They know Christopher Columbus never came here, okay? And they'll talk about the Moors also. They got National Geographic has information on the Moors, Britannica.com also. I look at all those sources. So what is the reaction when you provide the evidence and tell people that African people were the original people of North, Central, and South America? What's the reaction?
The reaction mainly is acceptance and saying, "Wow," and then there's a few people who are knuckleheads and they want to argue about
it. And so one of the things that I find is that because of an increase in the desire and movement for reparations to various extents, some people, I find, they seem conflicted because they think that somehow this deprives them of getting reparations, which you're going to have an uphill battle anyway if you actually understand the process. If you actually understand that you need 218 votes in the House of Representatives and 60 votes in the U.S. Senate to get, I mean, but that's a whole nother show. But anyway, that's a whole nother show. Okay. And it can't be an executive order because based upon Article 1, Section 9, Clause 7 of the U.S. Constitution, which deals with the power of the purse, the ability to tax and spend belongs to Congress, not the president. But that's a whole nother show.
I'm scared of you.
But some people I find they think that if they admit that African people were here even before Native Americans, then somehow this locks us out of getting reparations. But you ain't gonna. They act like they're about to get a check in the mail at the end of the month. Okay, talk about that conflict there. And as I explained to people, yes, the transatlantic slave trade happened. If you just want to hold on to slavery, but it just happened thousands of years after we first came here. Put that in context.
Put it in context?
Yeah.
I couldn't put it better than you did.
Okay. Both things have
spelled out.
See, one of the reasons why it's so important to understand the chronology of history is because different things happen at different times. You had Europeans taking, like the British, you had the British taking Native Americans from this land into England, enslaving them. Okay, you have the Spanish kicking out African Moors, taking them into Spanish colonies, enslaving them. You have Africans being brought from Africa by the Spanish, by the English, okay, being brought here to this land. You also had a Dutch colony in this land in the 1620s called New Amsterdam. New Amsterdam becomes the colony of New York for the British because the Dutch were here also. Mm-hmm. So you have different things taking place around the same time, but you also had African people here at least 50,000 years ago in the land we call the United States of America. So one of the things that's important, and one of the reasons why I think your work is so important, is that you get past you go beyond the 500-year paradigm.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay, that a lot of us are taught to operate within. And you go back 50,000 years, 60,000 years ago, 130,000 years ago, 250,000 years ago. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what is it that you want people, after they get your book, The First Americans Were Africans, expanded and revised, get it from Amazon, and there may be some other bookstores that pick it up also. Mm-hmm. What is it that you want people to take away from this book? After they learn this history, we have to put it into usage. Okay, this history is not designed just to debate one another on YouTube. Right. Okay, what do you want people to do once they obtain this knowledge?
Black folks, right?
Yes.
Okay, I want them to understand that what they learned in school coming up was incorrect. It was racist. And it's hard to hear this information for what 18 years, from the first grade to 12th grade. It's hard to let that go. You know how you have habits and things. It's hard to let it go, even if it's for your richness of your background is so phenomenal. It's hard for them to even accept that. So I do run into some people like that, but most of the people accept it and say, "Wow, really?" You know. So I don't know. It's a phenomenon that we need to brush off and get with it.
Okay. Now I encounter some people who talk about being indigenous. Mm-hmm. And Aboriginal and all this, and then they say the people that were here weren't Africans. They weren't from Africa. They were already here. I'm like, okay, so look, they came from Africa just much longer ago than we were originally told.
Absolutely.
Okay. Because when you look at these archaeological discoveries, just like the one that were the mastodon skeletons found in California.
Oh man,
that blew people's minds. That blew the paleontologists' minds. But then there was one in Morocco, came out in June of 2017, and this one here, this dealt with remains of Homo sapiens that date back between 300,000 and 350,000 years ago.
Right.
And they said this was causing them to rethink everything because the oldest known fossils they had of modern man dated back 195,000 years ago, found in Ethiopia. Okay. This and NBC News has right now I have the article up from the Washington Post on this. Oldest Homo sapiens fossils discovered in Morocco. This is from June 7th, 2017. Bones found in a cave in Morocco add 100,000 years to the history of modern human fossils. These bones are from, quote, early anatomically modern humans, our own species, Homo sapiens, modern man, with a mixture of modern and primitive traits. An international team of anthropologists, paleontologists, and evolutionary scientists report in a pair of papers published in the journal Nature back in June 2017. And they said the oldest Homo sapien bones known to date, the oldest Homo sapien bones known date to about 200,000 years ago. But the new analysis. Hold on just a second. Hold on, I'm getting some feedback. Okay, but the new analysis shows these bones are surprisingly old, 300,000 to 350,000 years old. This blew the 195,000 year old fossils out of Ethiopia. That blew that out the water.
There you go.
Okay, so talk about this for a minute, because now we're looking at, and one of the things they said when you read these articles and you read this about this discovery, they said that they're seeing now that Africans started migrating out of East Africa much earlier than they previously thought. Talk about that for a minute.
I can't.
Okay. All right. Exactly.
Number one is 12 midnight.
Okay. All right, that's cool. That's cool. But everybody check this out here. Oldest Homo sapiens fossils discovered in Morocco. Okay. And then that's Washington Post. Because as I explained to people, these archaeological discoveries, they have these in mainstream media, in print, in the New York Times, National Geographic, Washington Post, ABC News, CBS. Now you may not see it a whole lot on cable news, but they do have these articles. Okay. So do you have a website? We're gonna let you go here, but do you have a website? How can people get in contact with you? How can people support you if they want to book you for Kwanzaa celebrations to speak? They want to book you for book signings, Black History Month, African American History Month. What should people do?
The easiest way is to email me, and that's my name, David Imhotep @gmail.com.
Okay, David
Imhotep @gmail.com.
Okay. All right. And okay.
There you go.
All right, brother. Well, look, it's always good talking to you, man. We're going to have you back soon, and I'll contact you because I want you to speak to my online class also soon in the next couple of weeks. Okay. All right. Take care.
You take care, my brother.
All right, brother. Take care. Have a good night.
Okay.
All right. Peace. All right, everybody. That was Dr. David Imhotep, an extended session with Dr. David Imhotep, author of the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence, his first book, which is out of print. His new book, and I want you to support this, The First Americans Were Africans, Expanded and Revised. The First Americans Were Africans, expanded and revised. As we talked about on yesterday's show on Indigenous Peoples Day, yes, the transatlantic slave trade happened. Yes, African people were brought here during the transatlantic slave trade, but we came here over the course of tens of thousands of years. There were waves of African people. We didn't just come here at one point in time. So we have to understand that history. This was our land stolen from us. We were here before the people who we call Native Americans came into existence also. All right. Everything. Visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. You can register for the online history classes that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history. I teach 2 online history classes, Saturdays 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. and Sundays 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Saturdays is Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. And then on Sundays, Black resistance movements, from Christopher Columbus to the Haitian Revolution and the Black Power movement, 1492 to 1968. So we have classes coming up this weekend. Classes on sale, $80. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it any time. We have a bundle pack of courses. You can register for both classes also. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book references, articles, video clips. Even after the course is over with, you still have access to the full class. You can go back and watch it anytime. And then Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, Understanding Transatlantic Slave Trade. That meets this weekend also. You can we have the course outline here that you can download as well. So it gives you a lesson plan for each class session. There's about 100 articles that we reference. The first class is about 200 slides, 15 books that we reference. You don't have to buy any of the books to follow along in class. Click right here to download the lesson plan also, okay? I show you it's a very visual class, so I show you the excerpts of the books right on the screen, all right? Okay, so the content is PG-13. You can use this with your children as well. I don't do a lot of cursing. It's not overly vulgar or anything like that. It's nothing like that, okay?